Hey everybody, and Tony here, back with another classic film review, and this time we're going back to 1977, where I take a look at Annie Hall, the very film that has won 4 out of 5 Oscars and has pretty much become a staple in American film history. And I caught this one during my flight from Buenos Aires to Paris, but managed to finish the film right here in Berlin. So without further ado, let's start the review. The director of this film was Woody Allen, who also wrote the film and also starred in this film as one of the main characters. It was produced by Charles H. Joff. His co-writer for this film was Marshall Brickman, and aside from Woody Allen acting in this film, he's joined by his great co-stars Diane Keaton, Tony Roberts, Carol Kane, Paul Simon, Shelley Duvall, Christopher Walken, and Colleen Dewhurst. Now, I've only seen snippets of Annie Hall during my classes back when I was in IAFT, aka the International Academy of Film and Television, respectively in my screenwriting classes and also in my American film history classes, and probably a few other classes like screenwriting here and there, but those are the only ones I can remember. And basing on those snippets alone, I could already tell that this film was phenomenal. It's no wonder because this film won 4 out of 5 Oscars, including Best Actress, has won 5 BAFTAs, and has won a Golden Globe. Now that is just how prolific this film is, and the way I see it after watching this film in its entirety, while finishing it right here in Berlin, all I have to say is I was just absolutely amazed at just how much of a legacy this film has. And a part of me is kind of baffled as to what took me so long to even watch this film in its entirety. Maybe it just took some time for me to get influenced by this, and all of a sudden, there it was. And I definitely enjoyed every single moment of this film, and it's no wonder why this won 4 Oscars, 5 BAFTAs, and 1 Golden Globe. So the story of Annie Hall is fairly simple, but the writing really helps it become very complex, and with all the vocabulary that the characters say in this film, it can really make a college student's or even a high school student's head twirl and whirl at just how difficult and really complex these words are, not to mention the subject matters that the characters spew about, though with a purpose. So it's basically a standard story of how a relationship goes and falters, and it basically looks at Alvy Singer's life as a man, even though this film is all about Annie Hall. Even though this film says Annie Hall in the title, this no doubt belongs to Alvy Singer, who is the main focus of the film, because, well, Annie Hall basically represents his relationship between this, well, ditzy yet very somewhat intelligent young singer, and his ups and downs that he goes along the way, and the many relationship problems that he has, not to mention his idealistic yet somewhat twisted and somewhat strange view of the world. And the writing definitely helps, especially with someone like Alvy Singer, because yes, he's a man in his 40s. Yes, he has a very strange way of looking at the world, and he has some strange tastes, but very refined tastes, I might add. And it's pretty much all about him. Yes, it also focuses on Annie Hall, but at the end of the day, it's his story, and it's how he sees the world. And the strong writing is totally up there with the likes of Network. Not in terms of the huge words that they use on a daily basis, but also on how touchy each subject matter tends to be without becoming overtly offensive. So the story and writing with Annie Hall is really phenomenal. It is such a godsend, and for the time, it is just absolutely, well, it plays such a huge relevance, especially for any film fan or film critic or any person who really loves movies in general. It really plays such a huge part when it comes to such strong writing. And the cinematography for the time is absolutely very flawless. I remember that there's also one scene in the movie in which after Alvy interviews like a lot of people about their sex life and he keeps rooting for the queen from Snow White, there's a little animated segment of Alvy and the queen, who is pretty much Annie personified, and then there's some random person saying, "Oh, there's many other girls around." That animation style is very reminiscent of the Jay Ward cartoons, and I thought it was really that well innovative for the time. Not to mention the subtitles that Annie Hall and Alvy Singer like put in when they were talking. It really shows their inner feelings for each other, as in pretty condescending. But the cinematography for the time was very strong and very innovative. The characters are pretty much the bread and butter of this movie. The characters that I mostly follow throughout the film are basically Alvy Singer and Annie Hall. Now, Alvy Singer is a very neurotic, kind of awkward, yet very idealistic man who really feels that, yes, university education can really help someone. He's very well educated. He's very wise for his age, though not in the terms of your standard wise guy types. He's wise in his own way because he knows what's going on in the world. He knows what will happen. He has a very strong opinion about the world around him. And sure, even though people look down on him or even kind of think that he's a crazy person, he still sticks to his opinion and he doesn't really care what other people say. Though at times when it comes to relationship with Annie, he tries to make it as strong as possible, even though he knows for a fact that it's going to falter. And he also set himself with a lot of women in the past before meeting Annie. He married once, but unfortunately his marriage with this one girl whose name is, well, she was basically played by Carol Kane, did not go so well. And even with his relationship with Annie Hall, even though it goes pretty much well in the first few scenes, it kind of falters much later, though it's actually very subtle. With Annie Hall, she's a little bit of the opposite of Alvy Singer's ranting and raving, though trying to be as intellectual as possible. She's a much more laid back type of girl, very bohemian, very artistic, quite simple minded, but very fun loving as a character. She doesn't have to be so hoity toity with her vocabulary, she doesn't have to be so hoity toity with her speech, but she's very much a down to earth and very relatable young woman who is also a singer, who has a career as a singer, and Alvy has a career as a stand up comedian. And their artistic views of life really go very well. Though with their personal tastes, it's always a question of whether it's hot or cold. But with Annie's case, I definitely like her as a character, and hence I love both Alvy Singer and Annie Hall as characters because their chemistry together really works, even though I know that their relationship may not last very long. But it's safe to say that these two have very great chemistry. The acting is just astonishingly superb. It is extremely outstanding. It is up there with the likes of Network and Citizen Kane, Casablanca, and many other great films of the past that have earned its merit for having such fantastic actors. Woody Allen really knows how to play Alvy's shy yet very neurotic nature very well, especially how he handles the language. It is absolutely very flawless. And Diane Keaton, who plays Annie Hall, knows how to capture such charm, and not to mention, she has a naturally sweet sounding singing voice that is just so gorgeous to listen to. And the other actors in this film all do magnificently. Carol Kane, who played Alvy's first wife, was absolutely very phenomenal. She was able to play this first wife's sarcasm and sweetness very well, and not to mention youthfulness. Shelley Duvall, who plays another girlfriend of Albie's, even though her role was very minute, she was absolutely spot on with her performance. And yes, even the minor characters played by Christopher Walken, Colleen Dewhurst, and Paul Simon, they all did very well. It's no wonder why this film gained a Best Actress Award for Diane Keaton, because there were a lot of strong performances in this film, helped by the very clever, subtle, and witty writing. They definitely delivered their lines very well and made their characters come to life. So overall, this film had a lot of strong actors, and the music, even though a lot of the film is quiet, there is some usage of classical music and jazz and some Christmas music used very well. So the music, even though they only appear in and between, is still quite phenomenal. It's still quite good. So overall, Annie Hall should never, ever be missed by any fans of film, acting, or, well, great writing in general. It is a must watch for everyone. And I rate this film 5 out of 5 stars. It is truly a classic that should never, ever be missed. It has deserved all of that merit that it has, well, given. It has deserved a lot of merit, and it should never be missed by anyone. And I'm proud to say that I'm a huge fan of this film. I am personally that glad that I caught this film because it has a lot of clever dialogue, and you know what? They're extremely quotable, and not to mention such very likable and very relatable and pretty interesting characters. So what more can you say about this film? It is definitely a must-watch. If you haven't seen this film already, go ahead and check it out. Go and buy the DVD. Go watch it on any video sharing site. Just watch it. It's so worth your time. And that is just why I highly recommend this film to anybody. Anyone who really wants to have clever writing. It really doesn't matter who this film is targeted to. Any aspiring screenwriter, actor, singer, whoever. This film will definitely touch you in many ways you can think of. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in later where I have my first album review, and that album review is Roberto Alagna Sings Verdi. So until then, this is Antoni signing off and wishing you all a great day. And note, the album review is also yet another album that I've listened to from my flight from Buenos Aires to Paris as part of the in-flight entertainment. So until then, take care, everybody.